vegan challah, I hear you say. Is this possible? Well, it is, and Cathy is just the person to tell you how to do it. Before we start, here are the ingredients you're going to need. 440 grams of strong bread flour, 500 grams self-raising flour. You can use either white or wholemeal flour or a combination of the two. But here, Cathy is going to be using white flour. Then 4 tablespoons of brown sugar, 10 grams of salt, 14 grams of fast action dried yeast, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and 600 mils of a plant-based milk.
This is quite an easy recipe, a forgiving recipe. If you've never made bread before, this is quite a good one to start with. We begin with both flours in the bowl, the self-raising and the bread flour. Now the next thing you want to add is 4 tablespoons of brown sugar, which I measured out already. I'll just get a spoon to put that in there with. I'm just going to break this up because it's gotten a little bit packed in the way that I measured it. So I'm just going to put that in there. And then also into there, I'm going to put 10 grams of table salt and 14 grams of fast-acting yeast. So you just put that all in there, and then with a wooden spoon, just kind of gently mix it together. You're not really doing much work at this point. You're just wanting to kind of not have those things lying on the top. So just, stir it in like that. That's good enough. I can see that some of the brown sugar is still a bit in lumps. For now, that doesn't matter. At some point, we will need to take care of those lumps. Okay, now, the next thing you need to add to this mixture is 600 ml of plant milk that's warm. So I make my own for this, and how I do that is I take some oats, and this is a good way to make oat milk as well, but we're going to do it very easily here. We're just going to pour into this NutriBlitzer about that much. There's nothing particularly scientific about this part. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add warm tap water to this so that we have warm milk to use to mix in with the yeast. And then literally all we're going to do is put it on the NutriBlitzer. Hold your ears. For just a couple of seconds. But this is nice and hand warm now because I used warm water from the tap. So we need 600 ml. So I'll put that in. And I'm going to mix this together, and you can see that it starts to look a little bit bubbly as the yeast and the warm milk connect with each other. So I'm just going to stir that until it's mixed well together. So now that it's sort of broadly combined, you can see it's not really mixed together properly, but it's combined. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil, which I'm just pouring on the top, like that. And then I'm going to mix that olive oil in. Basically what I'm going to try and do is as soon as I can get this to a stage where I think it's kind of all sticking together, I'm going to turn it out onto the counter so that I can really work it with my hands, get everything combined in. But for now, I'm just going to carry on in the bowl just for a few more minutes. Just scrape this wooden spoon down. Okay, so it's broadly combined, but it's not fully mixed together. So I'm just going to work it in the bowl with my hands just a little bit. I usually take my jewelry off for this, my rings, because they get a bit mucky. As soon as I feel like I can get most of the flour kind of turned into the mixture, then I'm going to turn it out onto the counter, clean counter, and I'm going to mix it together even more. So I think that's probably enough that it'll come out mostly in one piece. So I'm just going to turn it upside down, get all the extra bits from inside the bowl, because you don't want to leave any challah behind. Okay, and then we're just going to keep turning this together. And this is going to turn into a shiny, smooth dough. I know it seems hard to believe now, but it will. So what I'm doing is, as I'm sort of pushing it and pulling it and turning it around, I'm kind of picking up all the little bits from the sides, and you can see how after just a couple of minutes it's starting to look a bit more like bread dough. Now comes the part in the recipe, I'm huffing and puffing already, the part in the recipe that they call the kneading. And basically the instruction is to kind of pull it and then fold it back up together, and then turn it and pull it again and roll it up together. So for those of you who have made bread lots of times before, you'll be familiar with this stage. You need to do this for about 10 minutes until when you start to pull it, it doesn't rip apart quite like that, but actually stretches. Something to do with the gluten. After about 5 minutes, it looks a bit like this. You can see how it's not tearing in the same way. We just keep going a little bit longer. Okay, so after another couple of minutes, you can see that the dough is very springy and it kind of holds together really well. The recipe says to do this for 10 minutes, the kneading part for 10 minutes, but the truth is I never do a full 10 minutes because I'm too weak to do it for the full 10 minutes, and it always comes out okay. So what you're trying to do now is make it into a little bit of a ball like that. You take a clean bowl and just put in just a tiny glug of olive oil, just to oil the bowl a little bit. Then you're going to put the ball of dough in there and just turn it around in the olive oil so that it's kind of coated all the way around. You can see just a very thin coating of olive oil on the bread. And now we're going to cover it with a clean tea towel. So while the dough is resting in a warm but not too hot place for 1 to 2 hours, you can clean up the mess you've already made. It's been just about 2 hours, and as you can see, the dough has bubbled up over the top, so we can have a look, and yeah, that is at least double its size. You saw what it looked like before. It was just a little ball inside the bowl. So now what we're going to do is just shake it out of the bowl, and you want to kind of press the air out of the dough. And this recipe makes 2 loaves, so we're going to cut the dough in half. I usually weigh it out just to make sure that each half is about, pretty much the same size. So I've got the scales here. Just weigh this out. So this one was a little bit bigger, so I'll just take a piece off, and now they're both about the same. Now you have to decide whether you're going to plait in a 3 or a 4 or a 6. So my favorite is 4, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to divide each piece of this into 4, again weighing them to make sure that they're approximately the same size. Now I've got 8 lumps of dough, which are approximately the same weight, and 4 for each of the 2 loaves. So now what you need to do is basically you're going to roll out snakes. So you just roll from the middle, putting some pressure on it to thin it out as you go along. As you notice, as you roll, it kind of stretches back, but that's a good length. And you're going to make 4 of those, and then we'll plait it together after you've got the 4. So what you do is you pinch together one end all 4 strands pinched together like that. And then you're going to weave them over and under. So over the first one, under this next one, and over the last one. And then you start with the outside one again and you go over and under and over. So there, I've plaited the second one, and I'm just going to very gently move that to the baking sheet next to the first one, leaving a little bit of room between the two. I'm going to cover them again with the same clean tea towel that we used before, because they now need to rise again for about another hour. So just before the hour was up for this second rise for the bread, I set the oven to 180 degrees, which is 350 F or gas mark 4. And it's just about ready now. So here's the bread, and you can see that it's risen again. It's much bigger than when we left it on the tray. It's got a good rise, just tucking the ends in a little bit. Now, before we bake this, what we're going to do is just glaze the top with a little bit of olive oil. So I've just got some plain olive oil here in this ramekin, and I'm just going to brush this lightly over the top of each of the 2 loaves. I'm trying to go in accordance with the way the thing is plaited, rather than kind of interrupting the plaits. And now I'm going to put it in the oven for 25 minutes. That was 25 minutes, so I'm just going to check to see if the bread is ready yet. I'll just take it out. It's looking good. Don't be alarmed that it's not shiny like challah. We're going to fix that later. So I'm just going to, no, I can feel that it's still quite soft inside. Normally what I do, check the bottom. Come and look at this. You can see, you see how this is still rather squishy, as opposed to this is kind of more done. It's nearly done, but I'm going to leave it in for 5 more minutes. I'm just going to turn the tray around because my oven's not that even. Give it another 5 minutes. I'm going to make a little bit of a glaze to put on the challah as soon as I take it out of the oven, which is a bit of olive oil that's left over from the glaze before it went in, and about half and half with some plant-based milk. If I had any oat milk left from the batter, you know, the bread dough, I would use that, but as I haven't, I'm using this from a carton. So now I'm going to just take this out. It's had a few extra minutes. Whoa, that was hot. And there we have the bread. And let's just double check the bottom. Yeah, can you hear that sound? It sounds hollow. And that's what you want. It's quite hard on the top. So don't be alarmed, as I said before, that it looks a bit different from a traditional challah, because what we're going to do now is we're going to put this glaze on it. This is one of the ways that this kind of bread differs from non-vegan challah, where you might use an egg wash. But because we follow a plant-based diet, we don't use eggs. Some research a few years ago suggested that every egg produced requires about 50 gallons of fresh water. Say an average challah recipe calls for 3 eggs. If you make challah every week, the egg production alone requires the use of 7,800 gallons of fresh water. So I suggest switching to egg-free challah. So we're just brushing this on, again, following the plaits. One of the things I love about this bread is that you can slice it like a normal loaf of bread or a normal challah, but also each of these plait bubbles kind of pulls away as like a tear and share bread, which is really nice and makes it lovely as just a dipping bread for any time, not just for Friday nights. And there we go. Now we'll just let it cool. Done.